Since its founding in 1976, Apple has been a trailblazer in the world of computer hardware and software. By 2010, it had not only revolutionized the music, mobile phone, and retail sectors with its sleek products and innovative stores but also introduced new business models that reshaped these industries. The launch of the iPad, for instance, promised to accelerate the transformation of the publishing business. Apple stores boasted some of the highest revenues per square foot in retail, and its App Store achieved an astonishing 1 billion downloads within just 9 months of its launch in 2007. Despite these radical innovations, Apple maintained a surprising consistency. Users of the Apple II in 1978 would find a sense of familiarity when picking up an iPhone 3 decades later, both products embodying Apple's distinctive design ethos. Apple's success wasn't merely the result of strategic moves or perfect market timing. It stemmed from a deep commitment to understanding how people use computing devices and a relentless pursuit of creating insanely great products. The iPod, for instance, was born from the company's intrinsic love of music, resonating perfectly with the needs and desires of millions of customers. Even as Apple conquered new markets, it remained focused on its core computer business. As Apple ventured into new territories and faced fierce competition, its consistent success puzzled many industry experts. The company often defied conventional business logic and wasn't afraid to experiment outside its core markets. While competitors moved towards direct sales and distribution models, Apple built retail stores. Its products were rarely the first to go on the market, yet they set new standards. The secret to Apple's success lay in its unwavering commitment to a set of principles known as the Apple Way. This approach centered on design thinking, a clear development strategy and execution, the CEO as the chief innovator, and the rational courage to undertake bold business experiments. Falling in love with computers. In the mid-1970s, when Apple entered the scene, computers were primarily used for data processing and automation, and were typically housed in company headquarters and government facilities. These machines were guarded and used only by specialists. The idea of personal computers as tools for individual work was unimaginable. At that time, corporations and government agencies controlled how work was done, and the tools used were designed to automate tasks. However, Steve Jobs and the original Apple developers saw a different future. They envisioned a computer that supported and encouraged individual work. They believed that for people to embrace computers, they had to fall in love with them. Apple aimed to create products that were not only functional but also appealing to individuals. The goal was to design computers that people would find useful and easy to use. To achieve this, Apple focused on simplifying the user experience. Design first, technology second. Apple's approach to product development was unique. They started with the design, focusing on what people would need and want, and how they would interact with the computer. They ensured the design was right before figuring out how to achieve it technically. Often, they didn't know how they were going to build the product initially. They set a design target and worked with engineers to reach it, pushing the boundaries of what was considered possible. This approach led to innovative solutions and products that people loved. Attention to detail. From the beginning, Apple products were designed to be highly interactive. Jonathan Ive, Apple's senior vice president of industrial design, emphasized the importance of focusing on the smallest details. He believed that, while users might not consciously notice every detail, these details contributed to why people liked the product. This meticulous attention to detail extended even to the packaging of Apple products. Co-founder Steve Jobs' design philosophy was that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Innovation in simplicity. Apple's focus on simplicity often meant leaving out features that other companies considered essential. For example, Apple eliminated the slot for inserting diskettes from Mac computers, which was initially criticized but soon followed by other companies. This simplification was not about removing functionality but about creating a product that was easy to use and understand. Paul Mercer, whose company Pixo implemented iPod's user interface software, explained that the iPod's simplicity was well thought through and difficult to duplicate. Adapting to new technologies. Apple's ability to adapt its design philosophy to new technologies and materials was evident in products like the iPod mini. The Mini reduced the amount of music that could be played but took advantage of new hard drive technology. It was designed with the same philosophy as the original iPod but used different materials and approaches. The Mini was made in aluminum, which allowed for unique colors and finishes. Despite initial skepticism, the Mini became wildly popular. Expanding the product line. Apple's design philosophy extended to other products like the Nano and Shuffle, which further reduced the size and amount of music that could be played. These products were designed to be part of a portfolio of iPods, and they were successful in their own right. An entire industry of accessories and links to other devices sprang up around the iPod, demonstrating the widespread appeal of Apple's products. Early days and initial success. Jobs and Steve Wozniak founded Apple in 1976, soon joined by Mike Markkula Jr., who helped secure venture capital. Apple's first personal computer, the Apple II, debuted in 1978 and was a radical innovation. The company went public 2 years later. Despite the entrance of IBM into the market with machines that could be cloned, Apple's computers, developed from scratch with a proprietary operating system and unique hardware, stood out for their simplicity and style. The Macintosh and market challenges. In 1984, Apple introduced the Macintosh, famously promoted with a Super Bowl advertisement inspired by George Orwell's 1984. Despite its innovative products, Apple's market share and profits began to decline due to the rise of IBM clones. This downturn continued until the introduction of the iPod in 2001. Leadership changes and strategic shifts. In April 1985, Jobs was removed from his operational role at Apple and left to found Next and co-found Pixar Studios. From 1985 to 1993, Apple was led by John Sculley, former CEO of PepsiCo. Under Sculley's tenure, Apple faced massive competition from IBM clones and rapid technological changes. The company struggled to decide which markets to target and what products to develop. Michael Spindler, an engineer and Apple's president under Sculley, took over from 1993 to 1996. Followed by Gilbert Amelio, a physicist and former CEO of National Semiconductor, from 1996 to 1997. Each new leader brought shifts in strategy, leading to debates about licensing the Mac operating system and targeting the business market, which Apple had barely penetrated. Proliferation of products and internal debates. During this period, Apple saw a proliferation of products and projects, driven by various strategies and failures. Some, like the PowerBook laptop, were successful, while others, like the set-top boxes for TVs and the Newton PDA, flopped. By 1997, Apple had embarked on a licensing program, accounting for 20% of Mac unit sales. The traditional product development process. Despite the upheaval, Apple's creative core of technology development persisted. However, the process became more traditional, resembling approaches at other companies. Don Norman, Vice President of Advanced Technology at Apple from 1993 to 1998, described the process as requiring 3 evaluations at the inception of a product idea: a marketing requirement document, an engineering requirement document, and a user experience document. These documents were reviewed by a committee of executives, and if approved, the design team would get a budget and a team leader. The team would then expand the documents with plans to meet marketing, engineering, and user experience needs. Steve Jobs' return and immediate actions. When Steve Jobs returned to Apple in August 1997, he knew drastic changes were needed to revive the company. His first steps included stopping the licensing program, closing 2 divisions, eliminating 70% of new projects, shutting down facilities, moving manufacturing abroad, changing the distribution system, and launching a website for direct sales. He reduced the number of product lines from 15 to just 3 and revitalized Apple's sophisticated marketing strategies. Jobs immersed himself in the innovation process, striving once again for insanely great products. The iMac, which debuted in August 1998, was a clear result of this renewed focus. Tim Cook's role in Apple's turnaround. Alongside Jobs, Tim Cook played a crucial role in Apple's turnaround. Cook joined Apple in 1998 with a mandate to overhaul the company's manufacturing, distribution, and supply systems. His efforts reduced inventory levels from months to just a few days. According to Fortune magazine, Apple consistently managed to unveil revolutionary products like the iPhone and iPod, which remained secret until their release, thanks to Cook's seamless orchestration. When Apple transitioned its computer line to Intel processors in 2006, Cook's team ensured there was no disruption in sales. Continued success and innovation. Even when Jobs took a leave of absence in 2009 for a liver transplant, Apple's momentum did not falter. Tim Cook ran the company during this period, and the products continued to roll out, the stock price rose, and Jobs returned to launch the iPad. Despite cleaning up operations, Apple maintained its core approach to development by working closely with manufacturers and staying attuned to customers. As Mark Rolston from Frog Design noted, Apple showed an intense interest in material selection and manufacturing processes, often pushing manufacturers to innovate. Platform strategy. A key to Apple's success. Apple has always been secretive about its strategy and operations, turning this approach into marketing magic and high expectations among its followers. Apple's strategy is more than just designing exciting products, it involves a clear platform strategy. For instance, the OS X operating system is used in all Apple computers as well as the iPhone. The iPhone and iPod Touch share the same platform, as do most iPod models, and now the iPad. Firms following a platform strategy envision a family of products from the earliest stages of product planning. They design the initial product as a platform, with an architecture accommodating future derivative products. This strategy offers significant advantages, allowing companies like Apple to leverage the resources and time invested in the initial product across subsequent products. High levels of sharing and reuse of assemblies and parts result in greater reliability and lower costs, benefiting both the company and its suppliers. The pursuit of beautiful products. Apple's commitment to design excellence is evident in its products. The original iPod's design, for instance, was deeply connected to its pristine white color and the polymer finish that achieved this look. Apple's chief designer, Jony Ive, described the intricate process of laying polycarbon plastic in the rear steel cladding to create a halo effect around the product. However, Apple didn't rest on its laurels. A few years later, the company introduced the iPod mini with aluminum casing and multiple colors, demonstrating Apple's ability to adapt and innovate continuously. The CEO as chief innovator. When discussing Apple, it's almost impossible not to mention Steve Jobs. His influence on the company is so profound that Apple and Jobs often seem like interchangeable terms. Research shows that company founders tend to imprint their organizations with their own personality traits, and Jobs' influence on Apple is a prime example. Remarkably, Jobs served as the CEO twice, and his influence evolved over the 12-year gap between his two tenures. Even during his absence, the company continued to evolve under his initial influence. Jobs had a confident and refined design sense from his earliest days at Apple. Although he lacked formal training in design, engineering, or business, his innate talent and ability to inspire others were widely recognized. His temperament, often described as dictatorial, likely stemmed from his distinct vision of the company's mission and its products. Jobs demanded excellence across the board, from aesthetics to operations. Under his leadership, products were launched on time with high quality, and early prototypes were never shown to the public. Apple's commitment to excellence was evident in its promise to customers. Once a product was introduced publicly, it would be available for purchase through retail and online stores. Jobs' vision for Apple products was that they should be personal tools to enhance individual efforts in problem-solving, rather than just enterprise solutions for businesses. This was a radical idea in the early 1980s, when companies were focused on creating solutions for large organizations. Jobs saw a consistency between the problem-solving efforts within Apple's product development and the work that customers would undertake with those products. Jobs was not just the visionary behind Apple, he was also the face of the company. Apple's product launches were not just events, they were extravaganzas presented by Jobs and his management team, often shrouded in secrecy. This secrecy even led to web cameras being deployed to monitor shipments from factories in Asia, trying to predict what Apple would unveil next. Jobs' prominent role in these events made him a business icon, akin to the Princess Diana of business leaders. However, unlike other popular figures, Jobs used his prominence to boldly move Apple into new areas. When the iPhone debuted, the company was renamed from Apple Computer to Apple, signaling a broader focus beyond just computers. In 2009, Fortune magazine named Jobs the CEO of the decade. Bold business experimentation. One of Jobs' boldest moves was Apple's entry into retail. In May 2001, Apple opened its first store, a controversial move at a time when the technology bubble was bursting, and other companies' similar attempts had failed spectacularly. The Apple stores were created with the same meticulous attention to detail as Apple's products, making them expensive ventures. Located in prime real estate spots and designed as architectural statements, the stores were more than just places to buy Apple products, they were Apple products themselves. At the time, many experts believed that physical stores would be replaced by internet-based models, like Dell's highly praised web-based purchasing approach. Dell allowed customers to design their own products online, which could be swiftly built and shipped. By contrast, Apple stores offered pre-configured products at higher prices with no servers or workstations. Tech support was provided by geniuses at a bar within the store, a quirky approach that eventually proved successful. Initially, there were doubts about who would visit these stores, especially since the iPod hadn't yet been introduced and Mac computers had a small market share. Despite the skepticism, the stores generated significant foot traffic, attracting both curious non-Apple customers and loyal Apple fans. Over time, Apple stores became destinations, showcasing beautiful products in elegant surroundings. The stores eventually generated the highest revenue per square foot in the entire retail sector. Apple's move into retail was not its first bold business experiment. The iPod transitioned from being an iTunes-based device to accessing a repository of music in the iTunes Music Store. More recently, Apple launched the iPhone App Store and the iPad Bookstore. These ventures transformed entire industries, forcing them to adapt to Jobs' vision of accessible and affordable digital content. Against conventional wisdom. Despite its success, Apple has often been criticized for not following industry trends. The company has largely ignored the open-source movement and insists on developing and integrating its own hardware and software. Apple's decision to design its own chips for iPods, iPhones, and iPads seems out of step with industry trends. The company's secrecy and control over its products have also been controversial, with some critics arguing that Apple's approach is too closed off. However, Apple has opened up to outside developer communities in its own way, inventing the App Store, where most apps are developed by third-party developers. Apple's suppliers are tight-lipped about their work, knowing that a slip of the tongue could cost them business. This secrecy has led to elaborate measures, such as web cameras monitoring docks to guess what new products might be arriving. In an era that celebrates open platforms and transparency, Apple stands as an outlier. Despite this, the company continues to create highly desirable products that win design awards and praise worldwide. Apple's success raises questions about whether conventional assumptions about openness and transparency are sufficient to explain how great products are created. Constant learning and adaptation. We make progress by eliminating things, Jobs often emphasized. This simplicity has been a hallmark of Apple products since the company's origin. However, simplicity doesn't mean eliminating functionality, it means making products elegant and easy to use. Apple products evolve, incorporating new features and materials over time. For example, the iPod started with a single material and color and later expanded to different materials and colors. The iMac has undergone various changes in design and configuration since its introduction in 1998. Jobs' vision for Apple was built on bold experimentation and a commitment to simplicity. But can Apple thrive without Jobs? At Pixar, he left behind a company that continued to succeed without strong personalities. During his brief medical leave, Apple continued to launch products and deliver impressive financial results. Jobs built a company with the rational courage for bold experimentation, ensuring that Apple's legacy of innovation would endure.